Hello everybody, this is General Yanis, and today in Death Card Tactics I'm going to be sharing my experience and the background and what happened in my first tournament, General Yanis' first tournament in Warhammer 40k, the Nerdcon or Nordcon. I took the third place with my Death Card army, and in this video I will be reviewing the first part, the first three games of the tournament, just briefly, and my experience from the first day. And here you can see me happy with a small bronze figure marking the third spot. So let's get started. So today is the 26th of October, and as I said, I just have come back from the first tournament. When I first started with Warhammer 40k, I just started with my kids with the first strike box back in March 2020, when the whole world was locking down. I instantly, let's say, fell in love with Death Card models. My kids didn't want to play the Death Card. They took the Ultramarines, and I was stuck with the Death Card, and then I became very fond of them. At that time, it was very difficult to get any experience playing. So I was really looking forward to the opportunity to go to the first tournament, which came now in October 21. So I will be reviewing my experience, and the games, etc., in two parts. In the first part, I'll go through the tournament background, the basics, my list I brought in the game, my Mortarion plus Inexorable for 2,000 points, and then the games for the games 1 to 3. I had done some ideas and thinking of strategy before the tournament, and then what actually happened in the three games before finally summary and final thoughts. And then part 2 will follow with game 4, 5, and final conclusions from this experience. So with no further ado, let's get started. So the tournament basics, the Nerdcon the tournament was a Warhammer 40k tournament, a quite small venue, 14 players. There was 5 games over 2 days. We were using the Grand Tournament 2021 rules, and it was a 2,000 point tournament. And the tournament representation of different codexes was quite lopsided. 4 of the 14 were Grey Knights. Then there was one Adeptus Mechanicus list, one with Custodes and Imperial Knights, and then one Imperial Knights with Astra Militarum, Sisters of Battle, 2 chapters of Space Marines, Iron Hands and Ultramarines, and then 2 Xenos, Orcs and Drukhari, and then only 2 from the Chaos faction, Thousand Suns and my Death Guard. And I just wanted the opportunity to show the Thousand Suns army. Really nice looking Thousand Suns, impressive painting skills from a lot of these armies. This was my favorite painted. I didn't get the chance to face the Thousand Suns. I'm quite happy with that, because all the mortal wound spam, I would like not to get on Mortarion's head. But the Thousand Suns also had the 2 Volkite Contemptors, as I had in my Death Guard list. So quite some heavy Dread Knights and Adeptus Mechanicus, really a strong list, of course, the Custodes and Imperial Knights, and a lot of these armies I hadn't faced before. I hadn't met Grey Knights. I haven't played with Adeptus Mechanicus in 9th edition, which I really are crazy strong in. I haven't faced Imperial Knights. I played with Custodes, but not this type of list. But the other, I haven't played. Yeah, I played some small games with the Orcs, and of course, and I haven't played Drukhari yet. I played with Harlequins as a preparation for the game. The missions we were going to play were known beforehand. Those 5 missions from the Grand Tournament 2021. And the goals for the tournament for me was, of course, first and foremost to have fun, to learn and gain playing experience. My first goal, was to manage to play 5 games on time and keep sane, or keep my sanity. Normally, after one game of 3-4 hours of 40k, my brain is a bit toast, and I have to rest a bit. But in this tournament, I needed to stay cool-headed and play multiple games over a couple of days, and I was quite curious to see how I would manage that. And I wasn't planning to win or anything, but of course I wanted to have a result where I could I didn't want to disgrace my favorite Legion, Nurgle, and our Primarch. So I wanted to have a decent showing to show that Death Guard could compete with these guys here. So the list I prepared for the tournament that I started practicing before, keeping in mind I was not trying to win the tournament, and I wanted something that was quite easy to play, that I was familiar with, and that fits my play style, or how I like to play. So it's 1998 points. Mortarion in a Supreme Command detachment. 490 points makes playing let's say the game faster, because instead of these 490 points, one unit to move around, I could have had, you know, more troops, more Terminators. I could have more supportive characters, etc. So Mortarion makes it quite easy to play. Maybe not the most competitive, but still something you can ask some questions to the opponent. What do you do with Mortarion? Playing like an intimidating figure, not necessarily the most point effective, but still something on the table that is fun to play and easy to play, at least aggressively. Most of the times, basically in all games, I was taking the Gloaming Bloat from Mortarion's Anvil, 9 inches, the contagion to lock down enemy from overwatching him, and taking away the rerolls to hit and to wound really improves his durability. As psychic spells, I has Miasma Pestilence, really important to get it off from Mortarion. So he's -1 to hit. He can really help him survive. Curse of the Leper of offensive spell, and Gift of Plagues to increase the contagion range to 12 inches. Gloaming Blow 12 inches is really, especially if you face multi-meltas or something like that, it's really important to either keep them outside of 12 inches with rerolls, but you don't allow them within 12 inches with rerolls. Then the main force of the army is an Inexorable Battalion, Chaos Lord, taking the Ferric Blight, which never actually came into play, the -1, because the Chaos Lord in this list stays back. He takes the Plague Skull of Clothila Relic, really helpful in a lot of the games. If something comes close to the Chaos Lord, one use Mortal Wound Grenade is really strong. So a cheap Lord to get rerolls once to hit. The Malignant Plaguecaster, always useful in our lists. He's taking also the Curse of the Leper aggressive spell, and he takes Putrescent Vitality to cast on some of the infantry, the Poxwalkers or Plague Marines I have in my list. For troops, it's one squad of Plague Marines, 1 Flail, 1 Blight Launcher, as I enjoy them the most, 125 points, and then 3 units of 10 Poxwalkers each to spread sickness and hold some objectives, hopefully something in the backline, screening, etc. One of my patrons, good patrons, Dennis, he suggests I would take a 1-man 20 squad. Maybe that would have been better, but this is what I took with me. And this some of these Poxwalkers were the first models from the first strike box I painted back in the days of Corona lockdowns. In the elite slot, the Taliman with a Tollkeeper, bringing CPs, and then two units of 3 Death Shroud, my favorite Terminators. One of them has the Reaper of Glorious Entropy Relic. Both I had the points to give the champions gauntlets, extra gauntlets, so 4 gauntlets in each squad, and then the main shooting threat, the main damage dealers, 2 Contemptor Dreadnoughts with 2 times twinned Volkite Culverins, costing CP to bring from Forge World, 150 points. So that was in my list, and basically with 45-inch range, you keep them close to the Taliman. The Taliman gives 1+1 to hit. You have the Chaos Lord nearby to make reroll ones to hit, and then you're fishing for exploding 6s with the Tollkeeper Relic, and then you're trying to get 6s to wound. One other combo is if you really need a target to go down, you hit it first with a Plague Weapon, for example from the Plague Scroller. You use the Cyclic Corrosion, 2 command points, and then you can also, everything else can reroll once to wound. So the Contemptors then could get some more 6s. So this is the basic damage dealer. Then I had points left over for a chaos spawn, 23 points, a fast guy. So far, never survived more than turn 1. And basically, spoiler alert, he didn't survive turn 1 in any of the matchups. Basically, when people see a chaos spawn, they want to kill it for some reason. At least he takes some shooting from the other guys. In the heavy support, 2 Plague Burst Crawlers with Entropy Cannons and Slugger. The Mortar can be really strong. Entropy Cannon, some of the best anti-vehicle damage we have. So, as I said, something easy and fast to play. Buffed Contemptors is in a big fire base with two buffed Contemptors. The Plague Burst Crawlers adding no line of sight shooting. The Death Shroud, always at least keeping one to teleport to keep the opponent guessing where they will deep strike. They can change the game, they can plug holes where needed. Needs a bit thinking to play well. And then just a couple of small units of troops to hold objective and spread the sickness. So before the tournament, as I said, we knew which missions we will be playing for games 1 to 5, and the games 1 to 3 is the retrieval mission, the scorched earth, and surround and destroy. All of them have in common that they have 6 objectives on the map. So you need something on the backfield to hold at least 2 objectives, and there are 2 other or more objectives close by in the middle. So the secondaries I've been thinking for my list, and especially for these missions, to the last with my list, that would be the Mortarion and the 2 Plague Burst Crawlers. And not so many armies have the possibility to take out 3 very tough units with toughness 8. And I mean, to both take out Mortarion and a couple of Plague Burst Crawlers, that's not so easy to do. So I always took to the last. It doesn't need very much planning. Even if I play Mortarion aggressively, hopefully my Plague Burst Crawlers could survive, hopefully scoring me at least 10 points. And if I was winning and Mortarion didn't die, I would get 15 points. And as I said, not needing very much planning and how to play really was a priority to be able to play the matches fast and to not be overwhelmed in my mind capacity when playing. Spread the sickness, the mission secondary, the death card specific secondary that Poxwalkers can do. They cannot do raise banners, etc., but they can spread the sickness, take some mortal wounds, and especially in these maps where you at least should be able to, here you should be able to at least make 2, here 3. So basically, it should be possible to at least do 3 contaminations in these maps. So I think that's very strong when you have so many secondary, so many objectives here. And then as the third, the mission secondaries for these 3 options is quite bad. I don't like them. So I was thinking to select something killy depending on the opponent's list. If the opponent had a lot of vehicles, take Bring It Down. If they had a lot of, let's say, what is called characters, take Assassination, etc. Something depending on the opponent, something killy. Again, I would with my Contemptors and my Plague Burst Crawler, I would probably try to kill stuff, and therefore it's nothing that needs special planning. That if you need to be in the center and make actions and stuff like that, I didn't want to have anything complicated. I didn't want to take retrieve Octarius data, as Poxwalkers cannot do it. You are losing units expensive units doing actions instead of playing the game, let's say going for the primaries, spreading the sickness, which is quite easy because Poxwalkers normally cannot shoot, and to the last, which just gives you points for surviving. So my general ideas and strategy was to play Mortarion aggressively, basically moving Mortarion aggressively forward. You're asking questions of your opponent. Yes, they can take him out, but then they will be spending a lot of their shooting, a lot of their mind capacity to do so, and then the rest of the army gains opportunity to get ground control and do so. If the opponent pretty much avoids Mortarion, everything Mortarion can come into melee with, he can basically kill. So it's not very easy for the opponent just to completely ignore him, and depending on how experienced the opponent is. The Poxwalkers contaminate, hold the backfield, and try to go to the middle also to do contaminations. Plaguebearer Scrollers and Volkite Contemptors to shoot the enemy. Always, at least, as I said, keep one unit of Death Shroud in deep strike to keep the enemy on toes. You can, if there is openings, you can bring them in the back line. If the opponent does something, opens some, tears up some holes in your line, you can plug the Death Shroud in to keep the line. And that's the main idea and my main strategy for these games. So for my first game, I was selected to play with Grey Knights, and I haven't faced Grey Knights before, and with a new codex they are very strong, and they are very strong against Death Guard. They have a lot of things against demons, against Mortarion. They can do so many mortal wounds. They have these very strong Dread Knights. And on top of that, I faced a very experienced and very good player that ended up taking the second spot. He won basically all his game. He only lost to the first place winner, and for me it was a loss, a big loss also. 90 points for the Grey Knights and 33 points for me. The problem was also there was not super much line of sight terrain. Of course, it helped my Contemptors to be able to shoot the Dread Knights, but my Poxwalkers, all the infantry, if you try to take this objective, you will just destroy it by the Dread Knights and the Interceptors, and yeah, everything in the opponent's army could easily take out my infantry. And my opponent chose the deployment zone, and this one was a little bit better this side because you could hold this objective without so much line of sight. Had a bit more problems on my side, but thankfully I won turn one, and my turn one was quite good. My Contemptors could shoot and take a lot of wounds out of some Dread Knights. I think I brought one to 1 wound. This Plaguebearer Scroller was a bit placed wrongly, and it was difficult for him to see anything. I could still shoot the mortar, and I advanced Mortarion to bring him very close here, and I took these 3 objectives in my first turn. And at the same time, I could screen out because I know these Dread Knights can teleport behind my lines. So so far so good, but with the opponent's first turn, they focused a lot of the psychic abilities. They could do actions to score a lot of secondary points with Purifying Ritual. And my invul saves with Mortarion were quite bad, but my Feel No Pains were really good. And at some point, I was thinking he would be really strong. I was hitting a lot of 5s and 6s, like in the good old days of the old Disgusting Resilience. So finally, with everything, a lot of the things shooting at him, he survived with 2 wounds left. But in the first turn, yeah, the opponent cleared out some of my Poxwalkers, and they came quickly with the Interceptors, and then were asking questions here for this primary. So in my turn 2, and now we were starting to get a bit yeah, stressed for time. My opponent was very experienced, and he could keep up a very high tempo. I couldn't as good, so I did an error. So I could move Mortarion here with the Grandmaster Knight, and I was left with 2 wounds from Mortarion. And then the big error I did was I shot with Mortarion's pistol in engagement range to the knight just because I could, and then he had the relic. He could redeploy, and then he came back behind my enemy lines, and in the next turn he got 3+ invul, and I couldn't shoot him, and basically he destroyed my Plaguebearer Scroller, and by that time it was basically starting to be game over with every Grey Knight coming in. So that was a big mistake from my part. Another mistake was I moved out my Death Shroud Terminators. They were hoping to charge the Dread Knight, the Grandmaster Dread Knight, before he teleported away. But when he teleported away, they didn't have anything to charge. And then I should have advanced them to put them at least on the objective, so I was losing objective points. I brought in a Deep Strike, the other group of Death Shroud on the backfield, hoping to make the 9-inch charge to take this objective away from an opponent. I failed my charge, so in hindsight, I never should have shot the pistol. It was meaningless to shoot at the Grandmaster. The Death Shroud probably I should have put on the the primary, and then the game would be alive for a couple turn more. From there, it went south very fast. The Mortarion died, and I was basically destroyed. So at the end, I only scored 33 points. I got 10 from the primaries to the last. Everything we talked it through at the end. My plague scroller would have been died. The last one, spread the sickness, I managed to do on 2 objectives, and assassinate, I managed to kill one of the characters. There were some supportive characters. I could take out a Dread Knight and then shoot them with everything I had just to score something on assassinate. I killed one character and the warlord. So a tough first game. Some mistakes due to time, and the Grey Knights were really strong and a much better player. Even without the mistake, I wouldn't have won the game, but I think I could have scored a little bit better if I didn't do these mistakes. And I will definitely not do this mistake. Do not shoot the Grandmaster with a pistol, even if you are Mortarion. So game 2 was a much better game for me. I faced Iron Hands, and I have quite a lot of experience facing Space Marines. I managed to win 92-56. The opponent, we settled the game after turn 2 3. The opponent didn't have much left, and we talked the final thing through. Again, a little bit better line of sight blocking terrain on this map, but in my deployment zone here, it was completely open, so I couldn't. It was difficult for me to put something that survived here. My Poxwalkers and Chaos Spawn didn't survive the first turn. My opponent got first turn, his dreads, and everything moved forward. They raised some banners in the back. They were shooting. They took out quite a lot of wounds on my Plague Scroller. And they killed, as I said, the Chaos Spawn and my Poxwalkers here, but they had gone quite far. They didn't take out the Plague Scrollers, and then in my first turn, I managed to get Mortarion engaged. He took out a Redemptor Dreadnought. He took out the other Redemptor Dreadnought. He killed a lot of stuff. The Volkite Contemptors took out the Dreadnoughts from the opponent. The Plague Scrollers shot the Repulsor Executioner. My Poxwalkers and Plague Marines, so they took the objective from Incursors here, and from there on, after this turn, when Mortarion just destroyed the Dreads and it was in the opponent's line, the opponent didn't have any multi-meltas or anything to take him out. So that was a big victory. To the point is also that the player here was quite new with Iron Hands. He had played normally Necrons, so of course it's more difficult to play. He could have probably done a bit better using some defensive stratagems and things like that. But a very strong victory, maxing the primaries to the last. Nothing died. Spread the sickness, we counted that I could have done it in 4 objectives, and bring it down was the maximum. I destroyed the opponent's dreads and tanks. So moving on to game 3, the final game of the first day, I faced the Drukhari. First time I was playing Drukhari, and my Drukhari opponent, it was his first time versus Death Guard. So it was two people that didn't know so much the enemy army. And here I scored a very big win, 94-38. Mortarion was clearly the ace. But I think also the matchup for Drukhari, my list was really a hard counter for this Drukhari list. The Drukhari player, he won the Sportsmanship Award, a really very friendly opponent, and really good guy. So I felt a bit bad for taking out his dark elves, but a game is still a game. The quite open terrain, especially here, didn't help the Drukhari. We decided for some of the things to be line of sight, but it was quite open on some areas, and it was not easy for the Drukhari player to avoid being shot from the Volkite Contemptors, the Plague Scroller, and then Mortarion really is a hard counter for the Drukhari if they don't avoid him. I got the first turn also, helped a bit, and I played Mortarion aggressively here. The shooting was quite effective. I could take out one of the raiders. To the opponent, I think, had 4 or 5 raiders. filled with witches and cabals and incubi and drazar and succubus, and a very strong archon was here. I opened quite well, took out one of the raiders, as I said, and then with miasma of pestilence and a 12-inch not allowing rerolls with the gloaming blood, Mortarion was standing defiant in one of the objectives. Drukhari decided to try to take him out as much as possible, and for the whole first round of shooting, they didn't roll very well, unfortunately, for their dark lances. I was also saving quite well with my involts. They managed only to score 1 wound of Mortarion, and a lot of the Drukhari weapons, they really rely on like they have a lot of damage 2 weapons that is basically worthless against Mortarion. They had a lot of rerolls that didn't help them, etc., etc. So all in all, it was really bad for them. My disgusting resilience, the miasma, and not allowing the rerolls was really strong. I lost 1 wound. The witches attacked, did a little bit. I interrupted and killed the succubus before she had the chance to come in. The incubi, a lot raiders, etc. A lot of things tried to harm Mortarion, and big kudos to the opponent for not giving up. I mean, it's so frustrating to roll so much and then just Mortarion shrugs everything off. So all in all, after that, it developed as a terrible slaughter of the Dark Eldar. Death Shroud came in, cleared up here. The shooting, the Volkites, the Poxwalkers, they took advantage of the board, etc. And I managed to max out on the secondaries. I took 45 points on the primary, 15 points to the last. Not my to the last units didn't die. I managed. I think we called the game in turn 2, turn 3, and then we counted that I would be able to spread the sickness to 5 of the objectives, bring it down. It was maxed. The opponent's army didn't give more points than 9. The raiders only were giving 1 point each, but that was the best I could take as a killy objective, bringing me up to a very strong 94 points. But kudos again to the player to play such a difficult game and still have a good sense and a good attitude towards the game. Yeah, and as I said, I'm really happy that this player, he won the sportsmanship award of the tournament. So summary and final thoughts for the first part, the day 1, I managed to finish with 2 wins and 1 loss. I had a good bounce back after the first game, left me in a good position and a good mood. Looking forward, I was tired, but I managed to finish and not disgrace the Legion on the first day. I think a lot of our players were quite surprised by the terrain. We were expecting a bit more, and that of course changed a bit the plans and some of the strategies and ideas. And Poxwalkers became very liable to be destroyed, let's say. Overall, very nice atmosphere and very nice to meet good and friendly people, even if we're playing, let's say, a war game and a competitive game. Of course, some of the players were more, let's say, business-like about it and more competitive, and they were also, you could see, more experienced players, but it was quite a good atmosphere, good, nice talks with the guys, and I was really happy to have been taking part of this tournament. My overall strategy worked okay. I was able to manage the tempo of the games, except the first game. The first game, when we had to play fast, my opponent was so much more experienced, and I was doing the mistakes there. But I don't believe I would be able to win that game. My opponent was simply better, and it's also nice to learn some tricks to be better and get more experience playing the games. Some of the biggest issues I had, as I said, Poxwalkers and my spawn died too easily when they were not hitting. I should probably have listened to Dennis and take a group of 20 instead of 3 groups of 10, so 120 and 110. The 20-man squad would hopefully have survived a little bit more. The Volcons really did great in every match. Super much shooting, mortal wounds, depending on the dice rolls, really good. Plague Scrollers also played their part. Mortarion did his part, even with Grey Knights almost taking me out turn 1. they took all their concerted effort to do so. And if I hadn't done the stupid mistake with shooting at him, shooting at the Grandmaster Dread Knight, maybe I would have stayed a little bit longer in that game. So Mortarion, especially for the Drukhari and the Iron Hands, he was really a beast in those games. It was really difficult to play the Grey Knights. They feel like a very strong opponent. And of course, it doesn't help that I didn't have the in-depth experience playing them or understanding all their codex. I have, of course, tried to learn some of their things, but it's always difficult to remember everything. Their secondary, the Purifying Ritual, is super good. They can do it, unlike this Spread the Sickness, where we only can do it, let's say, in one objective, and that's it, one objective at a time. They can do it on several objectives at a time, and they can score points every turn from the same objectives, and it totally takes them a psychic action to do on an easy warp charge. And I was a bit, I didn't know all their psychic powers, so I didn't know when to try to deny with Mortarion. Shooting wise, I felt with Grey Knights, my Plaguebearer Scrollers and my Volcons, they have the range advantage versus the Dread Knights. They could take them down, they could do something, but I made these mistakes and they came in my lines and took me out. So very little to do here, but if I played a bit more strategically, if I was a bit more experienced, maybe I would have managed to get a better results with Grey Knights. The deep striking was tricky. Aggressive or playing it safe with a Death Shroud. It's also a bit of restraining yourself. I got easily carried away trying to go for the long charges, the 9 inches, and trying to play very aggressively, trying to turn a game. Maybe I should have played sometimes a bit more defensively, just plug the lines, hold the primaries, and that's probably how you win more games. So with these words, this concludes the first part, and in the next part I will tell you about my game 4 and 5, and game 4 was the best game for me, the most interesting and most fun game and most closely fought game. It was really, really intense. I'll take some time about that. What do you think about this analysis here? Let me hear your thoughts. If you have any questions I didn't address for these games, please let me know. We'll be happy to share my experience or if you have some questions, see if I can answer them. If you like this video, please press like and subscribe to my channel. I will be bringing you more videos on Warhammer 40k, math hammering, strategy, death card, and now focusing also a bit on the Thousand Suns and other chaos function as I will come out. If you further want to support my efforts, please visit my Patreon page, patreon.com General Yanis, take part of the discussion there. And as always, a super big thanks for my patrons that have your encouragement and your support has made me continue doing these videos and taking a lot of time to bring you these results. And I feel that, being in these tournaments and doing this stuff, of course, comes a lot from your guys, the patrons' support. So very big thanks to these guys. So with these words, General Yanis signing out. Stay safe out there, and bye-bye.